My husband, 42-year-old male, and I, 36-year-old female, have a very solid relationship. We have been together for about 13 years, have no children, but are very active in my nephew's, 4-year-old male, Mark, life. For some background, my husband has a child, 16-year-old female, Laura, with whom only my mother-in-law, MIL, and to some degree father-in-law, FIL, have a relationship with from his nuclear family. The reason being, she was conceived when her mom poked holes in the condoms. It was a whole drama about it, and my mother-in-law begging my husband to have a relationship with Laura, but he simply couldn't. He even had to get psychiatric help in order to be able to cope with it. The mom admitted she did it so he would stay with her due to responsibility, but it did not work. He pays child support because the law mandates it, but nothing more. I didn't hear about this news from my husband, but from my mother-in-law, and she emphasized that she liked me a lot and hoped I would be a good enough person and foster a relationship between my husband and Laura. I was flabbergasted and asked my now husband about it because my mother-in-law made it seem so different than the truth. He explained he was going to tell me before we moved in together, and to be fair, he kind of had already given me little pieces of information here and there and explained the whole situation, and even told me I could go to therapy with him and see the psychiatric information if I wanted. But things were not like my mother-in-law said. His sister confirmed this as well, and explained this issue was the reason she was not as close to her parents anymore. Things went okay-ish for some time, and even the wedding went without issues. We all have several boundaries, and mother-in-law more or less respects them. Although she still has constant communication with Laura and her mom, we have several periods of very limited contact with her. But things went into overdrive once my sister-in-law got pregnant with Mark. Mother-in-law started telling everybody it was not her first grandchild and all that cryptic stuff. My husband was so uncomfortable about it. She pushed for Laura to be involved in birthday parties, christening, etc., but we all said no. She also invited both of them to her birthday party a couple of times, and we simply did not attend. Now, the new issue is that Laura has been so sad for not having her biological dad in her life. My husband said no and left immediately. I stayed while grabbing our stuff since I had brought food and told her it was not going to happen. According to my mother-in-law, Laura just wants to know my husband since he is her real dad, and despite being okay with her stepdad, it's not the same. She said she will give her our address and contact information because she is desperate for a connection. I told her I would call the police on all of them. I said my sister-in-law will be very upset with her when she hears of this, and to not be surprised to get less access to Mark. Mother-in-law called my husband cruel and me a bad person for encouraging his cruelty towards an innocent child. I told her I understand Laura is innocent, but she most likely would not be asking the same if it was a woman who conceived in the same circumstances. Am I the idiot? Edit. Thank you all for your opinions, even if you say we are monsters or cruel. I'm trying to keep up, but I think I need to clarify some things. I asked if Ayeta not because I want to betray my husband, but because I stand by him no matter what. The condom did not break, and he was very into safe intimacy. She assured him she was on the pill, but he wanted to be safer by using condoms. Yes, she admitted to poking holes when he asked her if she would consider an baby unaliving, and if not, if they could co-parent because he really didn't want a relationship anymore. She admitted to it. Mother-in-law knows all of this. She is not in jail because mother-in-law begged my husband to not report it, and he just wanted it all over. My father-in-law is like Switzerland now. At the beginning, he was up in arms until my sister-in-law asked him if he would feel the same if it happened to her. Mother-in-law is on thin ice with sister-in-law since she introduced Mark to Laura on a zoo outing without consulting sister-in-law first. Mother-in-law is not allowed alone time with Mark anymore. He has to pay child support until Laura is 18 or done with education in the country we live. He already made sure to make a will leaving her the minimum allowed by law, since you can't disinherit children in the country, but you can leave them the least amount. Mother-in-law is very distraught at this since he had me and Mark as main beneficiaries. Husband does not want to meet Laura, give her a letter, etc. I am not going to make him do that. I do believe my mother-in-law is pushing harder since Mark was born because my husband is amazing with him. We even took him on a trip recently, and we are very loving towards him. We also spend a bunch on him because we own our place, but it's all in my name for obvious reasons. I don't know if Laura knows, but I would never tell her because it is not my place, and despite everything, I think it is horrible to learn, and worse from someone you don't even know. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot that her son felt it was so traumatic that he got counseling should imply to mother-in-law that this wasn't some high school romance that took a turn. It seems clear OP's husband feels this was an attack and done against his will, and that she won't acknowledge his pain because she's so pressed for a grandchild is incredibly sad. It's quite possible for her to have a relationship with her grandchild and respect her son's feelings. Up. It's not your responsibility to guilt or shame your husband into confronting his trauma. Your husband made a decision to preserve his mental health and not be involved, and you're right to suppose it. Your mother-in-law isn't interested in anything but what she wants, and to hell with anyone else. Comment 2. I feel for the girl. Really. She didn't ask for any of this mess. I do believe she needs to know the ugly truth and get some therapy to deal with all of it. And someone needs to slap mother-in-law with the harsh truth stick and get her to back the frick off. I'm sorry your husband has to repeatedly deal with this. I wonder if he could get court-ordered restraining orders for everyone who keeps insisting he do more than the bare minimum. Because in the instance of rap, of which he is a victim, the bare minimum is all he needs to do. Keep respecting, protecting him, and help him maintain his boundaries through this mess. If you do that, you are not the idiot. Now for the update, hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post and for all your opinions and advice. It's been a tense couple of weeks since I last updated, so buckle up. First off, my husband and I had a long talk about the whole situation with Laura and his mother. He opened up to me about how much it still affects him, even after all these years. He said he feels like he's constantly walking on eggshells around his mom, never knowing when she's going to bring up Laura or try to force a relationship between them. It breaks my heart to see him so stressed and anxious about it. We decided to set some firm boundaries with his mother. We told her in no uncertain terms that we will not be having any contact with Laura, and that she needs to respect our decision. Of course, she didn't take it well. She accused us of being heartless and cruel, and said we were punishing Laura for something that wasn't her fault. It was a tough conversation, but we stood our ground. A few days later, we got a call from my sister-in-law. Apparently, my mother-in-law had gone behind our backs and given Laura our address and phone number. Laura had shown up at our house crying and begging to see her dad. My husband was a wreck. He had a panic attack and locked himself in our bedroom for hours. I had to call the police to get Laura to leave. When we confronted my mother-in-law about it, she was completely unapologetic. She said she was just trying to do what was best for her granddaughter, and that we were being unreasonable. We told her that if she ever pulled a stunt like that again, we would cut off all contact with her. She didn't seem to take us seriously, but we meant it. The whole thing has put a strain on our relationship with my in-laws. My father-in-law is trying to stay neutral, but it's clear he's caught in the middle. My sister-in-law is furious with her mother for going behind our backs and potentially traumatizing her son by introducing him to Laura without her knowledge or consent. As for Laura, my heart goes out to her. I can't imagine how painful it must be to feel rejected by your own father, but at the same time, I have to respect my husband's feelings and boundaries. He's been through so much trauma already, and forcing a relationship with Laura would only make things worse. In the midst of all this drama, we've been trying to focus on the good things in our lives. We took a trip with my nephew last weekend, just to get away from it all and spend some quality time together. Seeing my husband bond with Mark reminded me of what an amazing father he would be, if he ever felt ready for kids of his own. We've also been going to therapy together, to work through some of the issues this whole situation has brought up. It's been helpful to have a neutral third party to talk to, someone who can help us navigate the complicated emotions and family dynamics. I know this isn't the end of the story. My mother-in-law is still pushing for a relationship between my husband and Laura, and I don't think she's going to give up anytime soon. But for now, we're taking things one day at a time and focusing on our own mental health and well-being. Thanks again for all your support and advice. It means a lot to know we're not alone in this. Ada for not wanting to remove all alcohol from my house. For my sister-in-law's recovery? My wife's younger sister, Beth, 26 years old, female, is in recovery for alcoholism. She is currently living in a sober house after getting out of rehab. My wife wants Beth to move in with us after the sober house so that she has a support system. Both Beth and my wife feel like living with us would be good for her until she feels comfortable enough to live on her own. My mother-in-law, Miel, and father-in-law, Fiel, passed away during the pandemic, which was a big catalyst for Beth's drinking. So my wife and I are the only family that Beth has left. I am not totally against the idea of Beth living with us. I agree that she should have supportive people around her, but what I don't agree with is my wife's insistence that we remove all alcohol from our house. My wife isn't saying that we have to stop drinking to show solidarity with Beth, but that we should remove all alcohol from the house, at least at first. It's not like I'm an alcoholic too. I maybe have a drink 2 to 3 nights a week, but when we bought our house, it had an unfinished basement, which I turned into a bar game room. It's pretty fully stocked. Like, stocked enough that we don't have room anywhere else in the house to store all of it. Also, stocked enough that dumping all of it would be a huge waste of money, and drinking all of it would require multiple fraternities from the local college and multiple parties. I'd have to get a storage unit to keep it all, and it's just not really a feasible option in my opinion. This has become a point of contention between my wife and me. I feel like we do have some options, like maybe Beth just never goes into the basement. I could put a new lock on the door and only I have the key. My wife thinks I am being unsupportive and that I care more about the bar and alcohol than Beth's health and sobriety, which I obviously care about Beth's health and want the best for her. But I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that basement, and I spent a lot of money over the years stocking it to this point. My wife thinks that if I am not willing to dump the alcohol, I should start asking friends if they want anything and give it away. I told my wife that if we need to have our house be 100% alcohol-free for Beth, then maybe she isn't ready to live with us, and maybe she never will be. None of the options I've suggested have been acceptable to my wife. To her, it has to be all the alcohol gone. She told me it will be temporary until Beth feels more comfortable and we can all take baby steps towards having alcohol in the house again. I told my wife that I understand her desire, a need to support her sister, but that I feel like she is taking this too far in trying to change how we live our lives to accommodate Beth. I want to be supportive of Beth too, but I also don't want to completely change how I live just because Beth is an alcoholic. My wife thinks I am being a jerk and that if I can't get rid of the alcohol, maybe I have a problem too. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, woof. Not the asshole-ish. I really like the idea of putting a lock on the basement door. It's likely that there's nothing in there that Beth needs access to. Laundry, for example. My first thought is that your wife doesn't understand how much booze is down there. I'd consider throwing together a spreadsheet with rough numbers for weight and value. It's a whole different discussion if she thinks you're just holding on to a 6-pack and a couple of bottles of R&R, instead of a few $1,000s and 100 bottles of high-end Plonk. Comment 2. Not the jerk. Your wife is asking for a lot of accommodations but isn't willing to negotiate for your comfort in your home. I don't understand why locking the basement door with a hidden key isn't considered acceptable, as it will prevent access to alcohol. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last post and a lot has happened. First off, I want to thank you all for your support and advice. It really means a lot to me. So, after a lot of discussion and compromise, my wife and I decided to have Beth move in with us. We agreed that I would keep the alcohol in the basement bar, but I installed a new lock on the door, and only I have the key. Beth knows the alcohol is there, but she doesn't have access to it. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a compromise that we all feel comfortable with. The first few weeks of Beth living with us were a bit rocky. She was still adjusting to life outside of the sober house, and there were a few times where she seemed really tempted to drink. One night, I caught her trying to pick the lock on the basement door. I confronted her about it, and she broke down crying, saying how hard it was to resist the urge sometimes. I hugged her and told her that we were here to support her, but that she needed to be honest with us about her struggles. That incident seemed to be a turning point for Beth. She started attending more AA meetings and really focusing on her recovery. She even started seeing a therapist to work through some of the underlying issues that contributed to her drinking. As the weeks went by, things started to improve. Beth seemed happier and more at peace. She started talking about getting a job and maybe even going back to school. My wife and I were so proud of her progress. But then, about a month ago, something happened that none of us saw coming. My wife got a call from the police saying that Beth had been arrested for public intoxication. We were shocked. We thought she was doing so well. When we went to pick her up from the police station, Beth was a mess. She was crying and apologizing, saying she didn't know what happened. She had been out with some friends from AA and they had gone to a restaurant for dinner. Someone had ordered a drink and the smell of the alcohol had been too much for her to resist. She had taken a sip and then another, and before she knew it, she was drunk. The next few days were hard. Beth was so ashamed and embarrassed. She felt like she had let everyone down. My wife and I did our best to reassure her that we still loved and supported her, but it was clear that this was a major setback. After a lot of soul-searching, Beth decided to go back to rehab. She said she needed more time to work on herself and her recovery. It was a difficult decision, but we all agreed it was the best thing for her. It's been a few weeks since Beth left for rehab, and we miss her a lot. The house feels emptier without her here, but we know she's where she needs to be right now. We talk to her on the phone every few days, and she sounds like she's doing well. She's working hard and learning a lot about herself and her addiction. I've been doing a lot of reflecting on everything that's happened. I think back to when my wife first brought up the idea of Beth moving in with us and how resistant I was to getting rid of the alcohol. I realize now that I was being selfish. I was putting my own wants and desires above Beth's needs. I'm not proud of that, but I'm also proud of the progress we've all made. We've learned a lot about addiction and recovery and what it takes to support someone through it. It's not easy, but it's worth it. I don't know what the future holds for Beth or for any of us, but I do know that we'll face it together as a family, and that's what matters most. Thanks for reading and for all your support. It means more than you know. Aita for refusing to visit my ex-wife in the hospital, until I was forced to as her emergency contact. Me and my ex-wife Mary have been together for 7 years and married for 2. We waited to have babies because we wanted to first be financially stable, and after 2 years we started trying to have a baby, so a few months passed by when I caught her cheating on me. I immediately told her that I wanted a divorce, and she went crazy trying to suggest couple therapy, to forgive her, to think wisely because everyone makes mistakes, her words, and all this type of BS. But I was adamant on my decision and never forgave anyone for cheating in my life and never would. Our divorce was quick, thanks to a prenup, but unfortunately very dramatic cause during the separation and even in court. Mary wouldn't stop crying and begging me to think back at my decision. Fortunately, like I said, it was quick, and I always thank God for the idea of the prenup because it avoided a lot of other drama and discussion. I still have everything, and since she cheated on me, I didn't have to pay her anything. The thing is that after I caught her cheating, I tried my best to cut all contacts with her and to talk with her only through my lawyer. And when finally the divorce was finalized, I changed my number and house to avoid any unnecessary and useless drama. 3 years passed by and I'm still trying to recover because it really hurt me deep and because I really loved her. But unfortunately, cheating is one of the few things I never forgave anyone. But thanks to my therapist, I'm slowly recovering and getting better. Now the issue is this. After my divorce, I didn't hear news from Mary, so I didn't know anything about her, her life, and anything else. A few days ago, I found out, reluctantly, that she had a big accident in the car and was hospitalized in serious conditions. I know this only because 2 days ago, I bumped into Mary's parents in the supermarket, and they immediately told me this, even if I don't understand why. Then they said that it would be nice if I go to visit her at the hospital because despite what happened between us, Mary was always an important part of my life. I told them that I would never go to visit her because Mary wasn't my problem anymore, and I don't have to do anything for her. We started arguing, and I clearly told them that I don't give a frick about Mary, her life, and what she is doing because she cheated on me, breaking my trust. They always justified her cheating, blaming me for what happened so she can go to hell, and then I left. They reached out to my parents and told them what happened, and now my father and my sisters agree with me, while my mother is insisting that I was a huge jerk because Mary, despite how badly she hurt me, was always my ex-wife, so a quick visit wouldn't change anything for me. My friends are divided on the issue, so here I am. So folks of Reddit, am I the idiot? Edit. I'm happy that most of you are on my side, and I want to say honestly that I'm extremely resentful and I hold grudges, but that's my character. This story with my ex left a mark on me, and whatever is connected to her makes me angry and resentful like I never was because I really loved her, and divorcing was one of the most difficult things I ever did. Because on the outside, I appear tough and strict, but on the inside, I thought a lot about Mary and the possibility of giving her another chance. But then I think about what she did to me and how badly I was in these 3 years, and my resentment grows more and more. With Mary's parents, I had a decent relationship because they were never happy about our relationship and were always skeptical for some reason that I don't know. And the last thing is about my mother. At the moment, I thought nothing of what she said. But now that many of you told me about her thoughts on cheaters and cheating, I'm going to have a talk with her and my father. Because, okay, my mom was close with Mary, but this episode is off, and when I have a talk with her, I will update you. So again, thank you all, and you restored a bit of hope in me. P.S. I'm dating a wonderful woman for a few months, and I hope things will go smoothly. Now, for a few comments before the update, comment 1. And I would point blank ask your mom in front of your dad when she cheated, because that is the only thing you can think of that she said and is backing your cheating ex here. Comment 2. Hi, Mary. Bad luck about the accident. Have you done any cheating on anyone lately? How is this useful? What would be the point of going to see someone you know is a selfish liar? Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post and for all your support. It's been a busy couple of weeks since I last updated you all, so a few days after I bumped into Mary's parents at the supermarket, I got a call from the hospital. Turns out Mary had listed me as her emergency contact, and they needed me to come in and make some decisions about her care. I was pretty pissed off about it, but I didn't want to leave her hanging, so I went to the hospital. When I got there, the doctors told me that Mary's condition had taken a turn for the worse. She was in a coma, and they weren't sure if she was going to wake up. They needed someone to make decisions about her treatment, and since I was still legally her next of kin, that responsibility fell to me. I have to admit, I was torn. On one hand, I was still so angry and hurt by what she had done to me. I didn't want anything to do with her, but on the other hand, I couldn't just let her die without at least trying to help. I spent a lot of time talking to the doctors and nurses, trying to figure out what the best course of action was. In the end, I decided to give them the go-ahead to do everything they could to save her life. I figured that even if I couldn't forgive her, I could at least give her a chance to make things right. While I was at the hospital, I ran into Mary's sister, Sarah. We hadn't spoken since the divorce, but she seemed really grateful that I was there. She told me that Mary had been struggling a lot since the divorce and that she had been drinking heavily and making some really bad decisions. Sarah also told me something that I never knew before. Apparently, Mary had been sexually abused by a family friend when she was a teenager. She had never told anyone about it, but it had really messed her up. Sarah said that Mary had always struggled with intimacy and trust issues because of it, and that maybe that was why she had cheated on me. I have to admit, that revelation threw me for a loop. It didn't excuse what Mary had done, but it did make me see her in a different light. I started to wonder if maybe I had been too hard on her, if maybe I should have tried harder to understand what she was going through. Over the next few days, I spent a lot of time at the hospital, sitting by Mary's bedside and talking to her, even though she couldn't hear me. I told her about my life since the divorce, about the woman I was dating, about how I was trying to move on. I also told her that I forgave her, even though I wasn't sure if I really meant it. After a week, Mary finally woke up. The doctors said that she was going to be okay, but that she had a long road to recovery ahead of her. I went to see her one last time before I left the hospital, and we had a long talk. She apologized for everything she had done, and she told me that she was going to get help for her drinking and her emotional issues. She said that she knew she had messed up, and that she was going to do everything she could to make things right. I told her that I appreciated her apology, but that I wasn't ready to forgive her yet. I said that I hoped she would get the help she needed, but that I needed to focus on my own life and my own happiness. As I left the hospital that day, I felt a sense of closure that I hadn't felt in a long time. I knew that I had done the right thing by being there for Mary when she needed me, even though it wasn't easy, and I knew that I was finally ready to let go of the anger and the hurt that I had been carrying around for so long. It's been a few weeks since then, and I'm slowly getting back to my normal life. I'm still dating the same woman, and things are going really well between us. I'm also starting to think about the future, about maybe getting married again someday and starting a family. I know that I'll never forget what happened with Mary, but I also know that I'm stronger because of it. I've learned a lot about myself and about what I want out of life, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks again for all your support and advice. It really means a lot to me. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.